What is up, guys? It's fight week. It's a big doubleheader weekend. We've got EFC92, the first card of the year for EFC, as well as UFC272. That's going to be Sunday morning. A lot to get into, a lot of thoughts I want to put out there, and some opinions I want to throw around. UFC272, obviously a big one, Jorge Masvidal versus Colby Covington. I'm going to get into that one in the next video. This one is going to be purely just EFC92, the first card of the year, kicking it off with Luke Michael versus Pupanga Trezor for the EFC middleweight title, which seems to be the theme for the weekend, ex-training partners turn foes. Obviously Jorge Masvidal versus Colby Covington, which has become quite a bitter rivalry, versus Luke Michael and Pupanga Trezor, who obviously used to train together, and a lot to get into with regards to that. I think obviously we can't really draw similarities between the two, between UFC and EFC in that regard, but I mean, there are obviously two guys that know each other pretty well. They have trained together. I think it's important to note that, I mean, these two guys did train together quite some time ago. I don't think they were main sparring partners or like main training partners for long periods of time. So that yes, they will know each other to some extent. They will know what's dangerous and what's not in some respects. But both guys also would have evolved over the last couple of years. I think it's probably 3-4 years since they last trained together. So obviously both guys would have evolved. Both guys would have fixed up things here and there. So that's what makes it interesting, is who's evolved the most and who's adapted and who's become the more refined mixed martial artist in this time. And I think that goes for most fights. And you know, obviously this is a MMA matchmaker or MMA promotions dream fight, having guys that know each other well or former teammates. They love the narrative, you know. So I think EFC's been a bit of miss in terms of the build-up. But that narrative is always quite attractive. I think people enjoy it and they get sucked into it. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. That being said, I think these are two guys, like I said, that will know each other. They'll know where it's dangerous, where they don't want to be, and where they do want to be, where they're strong and where they're not. You know, just looking at the two guys and the kind of fight styles, both in the younger parts of the career, a little bit up and down, and then starting to try and find a stride. I think it's interesting to note that Luke Michael has realistically come from lightweight, missed weight as a welterweight, and now is competing as a middleweight. I don't think middleweight is really where he belongs. I think a lot of this has come from the lack of depth and the lack of champions inside the UFC. They've kind of like, you know, mixed-matched a weight. Trezor realistically a welterweight, and Luke Michael can make and has made lightweight for a good part of his career. So interesting to see how that's all kind of developed. I mean, like I said, the UFC's struggling for champions at the moment, and the divisions are just a little bit shallow. We're seeing a lot of return of older guys, the older guys that have been around the UFC for a long time, which obviously on this card we're going to see. But interesting to see how that translates in terms of a fight. Two guys physically, what they're going to look like at middleweight. I think Trezor is quite a bit taller. I feel like physically he's going to have a bit of an advantage. He's a strong human being, super athletic, super explosive. I think Luke might have certain aspects of the game where maybe he's a little bit more technical, but both guys will be aware of both of those things. I think over time and over years, skills can develop. Your skills will definitely develop as long as you're putting in the work and you're really working on developing those skills. So both guys would have obtained and refined skills. They would have obtained new skills and refined the skills they had. When it comes to physical strength, you can only get incrementally physically stronger. You know, over a period of time, you might have got 10% stronger or 15% stronger. So I don't think there's a big acclamation in terms of new strength that you've never seen before from each other. But I feel like, I mean, and I could be wrong, I feel like Trezor might have a strength advantage. He probably has a reach advantage. He's a long guy, long limbs, long arms, long legs, powerful puncher. We've never really seen too much in terms of stand-up prowess from Luke. I don't think it's any secret of how Luke goes about his business. get in, try and close the distance with a takedown, big blast, double leg or a double leg. Not really the blast, but that's his kind of style. Work a takedown and work his jiu-jitsu. That's where I think he feels comfortable. And in the past, that's what we've seen. Trezor has been a little bit different. He's got different approaches where he has been wild on the feet before, but we saw in his last fight against Kaleka Kabanda a more grappling-based approach, which was super interesting, against a guy who looks immensely strong in Kaleka Kabanda. So what that did tell me watching that fight for Trezor was that he can execute a game plan, and he can trust the system and trust his coaching and said, this is your path to victory in this fight. Executed, stayed calm, stuck to the game plan and executed that job. And I think Luke is quite regimented in that way as well. He has a game plan, he sticks to it, and he tries to find that path to victory. And that's what I think is going to come down to in this fight. Whichever guy can get their game plan in effect, and whoever can get it the most effective will come out the winner. I think Luke has a section of where he wants to win, and I think Trezor has a section he wants to win. For me personally, I think Trezor has a few more ways of winning that fight. I don't think Luke has the punching power nor the stand-up ability and technique to finish someone like Trezor. It's not throwing shade, it's just technically that's just the way I see it. I feel like Trezor definitely has the power, especially in his backhand and in his legs, to finish that fight on the feet, as well as realistically grind out a decision. Physically he could have a bit more gas, he could be a bit stronger. We saw how he adopted that grappling heavy game and how that worked for him. It'll be interesting to see how he adopts that against a guy like Luke Michael, who looking from the outside, you would say his biggest weapon would be his jiu-jitsu. So will Trezor still back his grappling and go forward with it, or will he try and keep it on the feet a little bit more? Those are the questions and those are the answers we're going to find out on the night, and I think those are the intricacies that make the fight very interesting. But like I said, I feel like Trezor has a few more tools and a few more chips in his corner to win this fight. An interesting narrative that I picked up, and I don't know if anyone else picked up, is it's a bit of a strange one. Luke Michael is obviously sponsored by World Sports Betting, who's obviously the main sports partner and provider for the EFC, and it's interesting to see how that dynamic all fades out. Obviously Luke has to come in as a favorite, as a betting favorite. How those intricacies work between who's favored and who's not, I'm not entirely sure, but it's just interesting to note. I feel like you can't sponsor a guy as a betting company who's now going to headline the same company that you sponsor and make him an underdog. Otherwise, what's the point of sponsoring? Like, just think about that. That's a bit of a weird thing I've been thinking about lately. I'm not throwing shade at anybody. It's an interesting dynamic for me on how that all works out with regards to being sponsored by a co-sponsor and then going in as a favorite. I thought it was quite interesting. Anyway, back to the card, EFC92. A good card, I think, to start. In terms of the EFC landscape, what's available and what's been happening. I'm not mad at the card at all. I think it's been thoughtfully put together. Couple of CRT guys, young guns. I just want to run through. Obviously, we've got Stratum versus Smith and Moyer versus Kruger. Not gonna blow your socks off down there. Henry Enston from CRT. This kid is worth watching. He's got a tough test ahead of him in Gilosondi. I'd like to see how that pans out. A big middleweight bout between the Panga man and Kulakane Hlongwa. I think that's one to keep your eyes on. I think definitely one of those guys is going to get stopped there. I think that's just the fighting style. Interesting to see how the Panga man comes back. Obviously he's been revered and feared and been a scary prospect for most guys at the middleweight division. So interesting to see what happens there, and obviously this is going to unfold a lot of the future for the middleweight division as we get out the water. And Boy Van Dam returns after that crazy TKO or KO. I think he's pushing on, getting on close to 50 years old now, still doing the thing. Rob Cunningham, I think he's fighting out of the UK, so it'll be the first time seeing him and what he has to deal with and what he brings to the table. This one is an interesting one. Nerek Simos versus Kia Harvey. Kia Harvey obviously coming off that decision victory over Tumisang Madiba. I think he looked pretty good. Obviously also a very grappling based style from a big gym out in Scotland. Great fight, great matchup. I honestly think that that's a main card kind of fight, and that's what I like about this card. You've got a fight like this at the pinnacle of the prelims. You know, that says a lot about how you've built the card, and I think that's a great way to start when you've got a fight like Keir Harvey versus Eric Samoes at the pinnacle of your prelims. Hopefully that's a trend we're going to see through the year, and hopefully it's something that the EFC are going to stick to going forward. Then Conrad Ciab versus Wade Henderson. Obviously it was originally supposed to be Gordon Rudman, and I think I did say it in a video earlier up. You know, unfortunately for a guy like Gordon, you can't be expected to go from the couch, lose a pile of weight. I think he said something like he had lost like 16 kilos to get ready for a fight in a couple of weeks and not expect to get injured. These are the things that happen, unfortunately. Wade Henderson stepping up to face Conrad Ciab. Interesting matchup. Obviously we had Wade Henderson in the combat jiu-jitsu at Submission Kings, and truth be told, he looked pretty good. You know, as a guy who's been doing it for a long time, showed some great technique on the floor, dominant position, got into a half guard, eventually to a mount, into an S-mount triangle, which is not an easy submission to pull off. Obviously with the combat jiu-jitsu he had some openings, but he looked pretty good. It'll be interesting to see how he matches up with Conrad. Conrad, obviously we know what he brings. He's going to stand and bang, and I think on the ground is where Wade will be looking to win that fight. But a nice matchup. Obviously Wade taking it on short notice. He's obviously been training a lot lately and feels confident that he can do it. So I'm intrigued to see how that one pans out. And then the next one, the ladies fight, Jess Monami versus Crystal van Wyk. Just a small bit of background. Jess Monami has obviously been in PFA for many years, training under her husband, which is Mike Monami. She fought in the SA trials. She lost to Cassandra LaRue via armbar, if I remember, but very highly regarded in terms of an MMA prospect, especially in the ladies divisions. Crystal van Wyk comes from a Muay Thai background. I think she's been in Australia. I think she's currently training in Tiger Muay Thai in Thailand, with a long history of Muay Thai from what I understand. So interesting matchup. These are two pretty high level ladies. It's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. Jess Monami, I think, is a purple belt in jiu-jitsu now. Very well versed. She's been doing it a long time. She's been training a long time. This will be her pro debut, stepping up. And Crystal van Wyk, I think might be mistaken, but I think it is also, or she's had MMA fights before. I can't remember exactly. But these are two highly skilled ladies, especially for the South African landscape and the EFC landscape. Honestly, this is a fight that deserves to be on the main card, and I think down the line, if this division continues to grow, I think you'll see these two ladies probably purple for a title down the line. Be interesting to see how that pans out. Obviously, Crystal van Wyk in a big camp, getting to train some of the best in the world, how that translates into MMA and what she brings to the table. But it's exciting. I'm excited to see development in the ladies divisions. It's really much needed, so keep your eyes out on that one as well. Cam Salmon returns at long last against Ruvan de Beer. This is from the second time around making this fight. I don't know what happened the first time, but anyway, it's a great fight. I think it's a massive step up in opponent for Cameron Salmon, and it's the right kind of test for where he is in his career. Ruvan's very dangerous. We've seen him knock guys out on the feet. We've seen him submit guys well rounded. He's been around quite a while now against the young gun, and you know, it's a lot of pressure when you're someone like Ruvan de Beer now. You know, Cam Salmon is also under a lot of pressure. He's the prodigy. He's Dricus's prodigy, who's obviously doing things in the UFC and darling of the EFC, if we can put it that way. So a lot of pressure on both guys, but you know, Ruvan looking to stop that momentum and kind of steal that hype, all of a sudden completely changes where he sees himself in the EFC landscape. Cam Salmon, if he goes on to win this, then we're starting to really see that the hype is real, and the same will be said for him. He gets past Ruvan, all of a sudden the landscape changes. We're starting to look at where he fits into the title picture and those kinds of things. I think both guys really well rounded. Expect to see a lot of exchanges on the feet. Perhaps one of them will look to implement more wrestling and a bit of a takedown, and it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Technically and stylistically, I think this is an amazing fight. I think potential fight of the night there. Keep your eyes on it. I'm super excited for this fight. It's a great matchup. And then obviously the return of JP Kruger versus Roy Lokolo. I would imagine that JP is going to be pitted as a reasonable favorite here, and I would guess that the winner here will be considered for the title fight. Not too much below the middleweight division. Obviously there's a couple of guys who could make their way back, but yeah, I think if, especially for JP, if he can put a great performance against a guy like Roy Lokolo, he's definitely knocking on the door. Whoever wins that title shot between Luke Michael and Pupanga Trezor. JP Kruger, obviously with a massive kickboxing background, he's been one of the best kickboxers in the EFC previously, on top of his ever growing jiu-jitsu game. Extremely dangerous on the ground. I would suspect he just has too many tools for Roy Lokolo and finds the job either on the feet or on the ground. I would suspect submission would be his preferred method of victory. Which one he gets, we will find out on the night. But yeah, I would be quite comfortable to bet on JP by submission in that one. But yeah, good fighter as well. I think it's a nice kind of hop in after the time JP's been off 5 years or whatever it's been. He's not being, Roy's very big, very physical, very athletic, but I think technically, JP will just be too much for him. And obviously I've given my thoughts on Luke Michael versus Pupanga Trezor. I'm just going to quick fire through the main card. Ciab versus Henderson, probably the hardest one for me to pick. I'll go with Wade Henderson. I would also suspect a submission there somewhere. Munimi versus Van Wyk. I think Jess Munimi will find a way to win that. I would probably say by decision. Cameron Simon versus Ruben de Beer. I'm also going to go with Cam Simon by decision. JP Kruger by submission, which I just said. And I think I'm going to go with a bold prediction here on Pupanga Trezor to win by TKO. But deep one, maybe inside 3 rounds or something like that. That's where I see it going. That's my opinion and my picks. It's an exciting card. Happy to have the EFC back. Let me know what you think and what your picks are, and we'll chat to you soon. Peace.